Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February 28th Product Analytics Sync. A couple agenda items today, but of course, we will start with the build board review. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully, everyone can see that. Thumbs up. Thank you. All right. So we got a couple of things here. I'm going to refresh because I just was trying to edit some of the issues. It's deploying product analytics to new public handbook. This is formally deploying to the GitLab project. The description itself actually still needs to be updated, but there's not that many opted-in users for that for the GitLab project for it to make sense. So we're going to be pivoting that over. The milestone planning issue is just there for excuse me, reference, and then we've got the product analytics application setting for the collector host, which is assigned to Halil, but I believe he's out this week. So we can check in another time.
He ran that plan by me last week, and it looked pretty solid for when he's back.
Great. Awesome. Then hopefully we can move that into in dev next week when he's back. Cool. We've also got a new issue here in severity 4 bug called product analytics breadcrumbs do not return to the right page. Who created this one, or we can open it up?
I made this one. Looks like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I apologize. That's confidential. Yep.
Yeah, it's got some internal handbook screenshots there, so that's the reason it's a confidential issue.
Got it. All right. We can triage that and figure out what we want to do there. And then, Alan, you have the backend issue for adding an API to retrieve the state of a project analytics stack. Is there anything you want to call out here with this issue?
Not really. I still trying to get my bearings. So
gotcha. No worries.
I have a plan. I'm working on it.
Sweet. Awesome. And then Max, you have document existing Jitsi integration points.
Yeah, I might close this issue after the call. I'll check. It was mainly just to sort of spark a conversation between myself and Basti about how they can start moving to using Snowplow and product intelligence. And it looks like an MR is open to that effect. So leave it for now, but I may close it afterwards. But there's nothing else for me to do on it right now.
Sounds good. And then we've got an issue for removing the default date range limit based off of a discussion from last week. There's no particular reason right now to have the date range limits there. And then as we do some load testing, as we go through our customer release phases, we may want to reintroduce those to some degree. I also opened up a discussion issue that we can bring up later in the agenda as far as how we want to handle our pre-configured dashboards, as well as the ones that customers are able to build. So we can discuss that sync if we have time. Moving over to the planning breakdown issue, we have present call to actions to configure dashboards in the shared dashboard listing. That's unassigned, as well as the consolidation of some feature flags, which we may also want to consider renaming just to a final name as we work to just consolidate everything into a single flag beyond just the shared dashboard listings.
With the present call to actions, that's with me. Tim's raised some questions that I need to get back to. I was going to do it Friday, but I was off ill.
No worries. Great. Should I assign this to you then? Or?
Yep, that's fine. I need to process it and get it out of planning breakdown. So yeah, assign to me.
Got it. And then we can reassign as needed. Cool. And then you've got the next blocked issue here for removing product analytics specific dashboard listing. Anything to call out here?
No, that's next on the list after the work I'm doing right now.
Sounds good. Moving on to ready for development, then we have the cube query rendering visualization column chart, which is assigned to Elwin, who's not present given the time zones. So if there's anything to call out from anyone else, please do. Otherwise, we'll just move on to Jan's issue for the 404 for handling if a dashboard is not available.
Yeah, so I haven't been able to look at that just yet. The same for the following issue.
Got it. Elwin's got the next one as well, so let's just jump over that unless anyone has anything to add. All right, then Tim, there's a put an add dashboard button on the analytics listing page, which I think is part of your Spike MR. So
Yeah.
anything you want to call it here?
No, this is basically waiting now that the load is getting merged and then the save is next, and then new and adding a dashboard is the third one in line.
Got it. I have a question about that load one, but I guess that's part of the pre-configured and then customer built one. So we can get to that later. Sam, you have the next one for creating a post, a blog post, excuse me, about product analytics internal preview. Anything you want to call out here?
Yeah, I'm working with Sandra on this one, so feel free to check out the issue that's linked there. If you want to see the draft, comments, feedback, welcome on it as always. Hopefully we'll get it published, and it'll be, you know, a good way to get people excited about what we've been calling the internal preview and what we're going to be building and shipping externally to them in the near future.
Awesome. I have the next two, connecting dev and staging GitLab environments to the respective clusters. The dev cluster is available, but the staging one I need to work on. I published the work to use different environment-specific values on the Helm charts. So the staging one should be a lot easier to set up at this point. But once those are set up, then we can actually connect dev and staging.GitLab to those clusters to be fully operational. As far as the Jitsi data persistence one, this one just was blocked, but now that we're moving to Snowplow, I'm just going with a quicker Band-Aid just to prevent failover from the configurator. So hopefully I can get to that this week. And then, Jan, you have the next one for the GL line chart for its height issue.
So this is related to improving the panel and fixing like the panel responsiveness, especially some of you may notice that the line charts don't fill the panel heights. This is a bug actually from GitLab UI that we don't respect the height auto setting. I've spoken to the foundation team and we've agreed on a solution to this. And the solution is basically to add some classes to a GL line chart. This bug is also present on everything that uses GL chart inside GitLab UI. So while I'm there, I'm going to try and fix it for all of the charts, which isn't that big of a change, but it is going to be a lot of validation because I need to validate everywhere a chart is currently being used inside GitLab. So that's why I've bumped the weight from a 1 to a 2. I've also split out the work that was being blocked by this in this milestone, which is fixing the chart height from all the other UI bugs that I'm fixing. So that I can like unblock all of that stuff and created a new one weight issue for just fixing that once this GitLab UI issue is solved.
Got it. Cool. Thanks for the update. And then Rob, you've got replace product analytics dashboard listing with the new shared one at the project level.
Yeah. So the initial big front end MR is currently set to merge when pipeline succeeds. And then I've got a couple more MRs that need to roll out to continue that moving process. Obviously, as people add work into the existing product analytics, I'm also monitoring and having to pull that over too. So there may be an additional MR at the end of all this before I wipe everything to make sure everything's ported over properly.
Got it. And then in review, Jan, you have the next 3.
Yes.
4.
4.
You have the whole column, actually.
Yes.
Sorry, go ahead.
My column.
Yes.
These
That's
are all,
yeah,
these are all in review with Rob. So once Rob has a chance after working on the dashboard listing to review this would be nice. But these are all relatively minor and small changes. I went bug hunting while improving the panel responsiveness and also solved 2 other issues while I was working on that, including the panel titles should be truncated, and also that single stat visualizations shouldn't have decimal places when the value is 0. It was pretty weird that it was like 0.00. You know, how accurate do you need to display the value 0? And yeah, so hopefully all these should be merged and ready to go soon.
Awesome. Then that concludes our Jan and Rob column. Then going for closed issues, I believe our last one was the internal preview dashboard behavior issue. So then we've got think if I just counted that correctly, 6, I don't know, maybe 7 closed issues. We'll just go in order. So we have the dashboard lists retain fluid container after visiting a dashboard or the panel designer. Tim, looks like you fixed this one. Anything you want to call out with this issue?
It's fixed.
Awesome.
It's simply we have, so this is basically reaching out to the overall container, and it's basically adding and removing classes, and you come and basically go out of that page again, and simply makes the dashboard itself fluid completely. And as soon as you go back to the lists or to something else, then it basically goes back to the limited width again.
Got it. Great.
So
Good stuff there. This is just a discussion issue regarding the now visualization designer. So as I mentioned last week, we had already done naming, but then I just wanted to cover the overall strategy and how we planned for potential visual designers in the future. So I added that after our call last week. So if you haven't seen that, then you can catch up on that there. We have a couple of issues from Max here for ClickHouse and funnel analysis. Anything you want to call it with these?
Yeah, so we've made some documentation changes to make it possible to export raw data from Cube in JSON format. So that's in documentation today. And then funnel analysis is now working. You can define funnels in YAML and query them using the API. So it's available for front end to work its magic at some point. But yeah, you can now define funnels as long as they're only made out of page view events, because we don't support any others yet. But yeah, that works well. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
Question
cool.
about the funnel analysis one. Do we have a video recording of that working in action? I know you posted a demo, I think, a couple months ago when it was in progress.
No, I've not done another one since. The documentation's up to date, but I'd be more than happy to record a quick screencast if that's useful, Sam.
Yeah, that'd be helpful for me. I'd appreciate it if it's not going to take too much time.
No.
Another question about the spike issue. Part of that issue was getting issues created for the front end side of the feature to be implemented later. Were those issues created in the Epic as well, or do those still need to be made?
Not well. I haven't yet, unless you have, Dennis, as well.
No, I think we need to create those.
Okay.
Because yeah, we'll want some for how we want to handle custom events in the future. And then front end needs to start thinking about, as well as UX, we need to start thinking about the actual workflow for creating those funnels. Similar to our visualization designer. So we have a couple issues to create there.
Okay. Yeah, because we called that out in the spike issue description. So I wanted to check if that was done. So we should either make a new issue for a front end spike or just create those issues as part of closing this one out.
Yeah, totally agree.
Okay,
do you want to reopen that issue for now then, Dennis? Possibly don't lose it,
yeah,
or I can create a new one.
I think if you just create a new one, that's fine.
Okay.
But yeah, we just definitely want to make sure we kind of hand that off to the next party to continue on. Great. And then it's our 6th issue, which is also our first community contribution. So can't really speak to it as far as the author, but we got some internationalization, externalization work done to consolidate to use the same namespace. So that's great to see. And it knocks out one of our things targeted for the first GA release. So it's great. And that's the board review, unless anyone has
the community contribution one. Do we know who that person is or how they found our project?
They've contributed a number of different internationalization MRs throughout different parts of the product. So I don't know how they found it because I don't think we classified it as an internationalization label, but they somehow did. Yeah, we could reach out, but I think we in the Slack channel, they've made previous contributions similar to this one to other product areas.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yep. Cool. That about wraps up the build board review. If there's nothing else anyone would like to add. Cool. Then stop sharing for now. I have a point about a discussion I've opened up as I called out in the build board review about how we want to handle pre-configured and customer built dashboards. I started responding to some of the discussions there, but there are some open ones. It doesn't seem like we have too much on the agenda. So if there's no objections, I would like to maybe just discuss some of those points. So we can perhaps get some closing thoughts on or close out some of these threads. Just let me reshare my screen, though I've just lost that window. Give me a second. All right. So probably have a weirdly worded question for everyone. This was about how we want to show all the different dashboard configurations based on the number of sources. The first thread was about the functionality in terms of how we currently support it. But this thread here is about what do we do when we have pre-built dashboards defined somewhere, I would imagine hard-coded in our code base, and then we have customer-built ones and how we want to actually show all of that in the listing. Max, Tim, Sam, you have a couple different thoughts here. Would you like to vocalize your thoughts generally?
Yeah, I think my general thoughts initially were they were based on my previous assumptions. So to quote Sid, they were, was it strong opinions weakly held? And I'm more than happy, because I think my understanding diverges from Sam's specifically, for my points to be broadly ignored, and that's fine.
Okay. And then Tim, you have I think, yeah, did you want to vocalize or you want me to summarize?
Please go ahead and summarize, and especially compare with Sam's, because I haven't read Sam's yet.
Sure. So I think I agree with Tim's point here. Basically, he's summarizing that we should be offering pre-built out of the box. We shouldn't have to give them the option to opt in. And so I think with the shared listing and how we display audience and behavior already, and they have to already set up the cluster or at least initialize that. That's the easiest route to show value in analytics and get them instrumenting their applications. And so we should always show that in order to kind of just have an easy path to providing value there. And then the custom dashboards are just for whatever else they build. So correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but basically we should show both at all times. Right.
Exactly that. I think the custom dashboards can be anything at the end of the day. There's a really good epic from the optimized team on custom dashboards, where you can really see how much customers are interested really at the end of the day into those dashboards. You can see tons of customer requests and customer success teams basically saying, yeah, this company XYZ has already built a dashboard in their BI tool with the data from Optimize, but at the same time with the error rates and so on. And I think that's also what we want to be able to enable our customers is at the end of the day that we will think about it is, okay, we have a team, which let's not make it too complex so that it doesn't confuse everyone. Let's say the planned project management team has a dashboard at the end of the day to see how often are their features used on a daily level? How often do errors happen in production? How good is their error budget? How good is their throughput rate? How many MRs have been done this milestone and so on? So really anything that is relevant to the team, and the more flexibility they have to mix and match what they are actually using and what they need, I think the better is at the end of the day, the solution. And if they are also, I think what will be nice is that if we can simply have the same format for our dashboards and the ones that custom, that they can simply say, duplicate this panel and basically import it into my custom dashboard so that they can reuse it over time, will be an additional so that they can really do this mix and match type.
Okay. Cool. I do want to clarify the question, which again, I could have worded better, is for customer built ones. And so we have different sources potentially. Right now, we're looking at the project repository itself, but we have the ability to define a repository elsewhere, which contains this, which can be used at a higher level, group level, perhaps. And so this question specifically, the reason why we're talking about whether we show pre-builds or not is because some of the discussions as a coming out of this question, but the question, just to clarify, is around, we have customer built dashboards in multiple places. How do you want to actually like show all of them? Or do we, if a repository is defined, do we ignore configurations in the project itself? So just with that clarification, Sam, does that help in terms of understanding the question, or?
Yeah, I think it does.
Okay.
So from my perspective, if a customer has defined a project pointer to say configuration is done over in that repository, that is the place that we should look for configuration and the sole place we should look. If
Okay.
we're going to look at a place where the project pointer is pointing and in the local repository, that's going to introduce weird edge cases. It's going to make our information architecture harder to understand for people. So we should really just look in that single place. That said, the topic of where do we look for and load customer defined dashboards, in my mind, is orthogonal to what do we do with GitLab predefined dashboards.
Okay.
And I wrote a little bit more about this in my response, but really one of the key goals of those is to make it so that customers have the shortest path from the idea of, I want to add product analytics to my project and my application, to I see something that I find interesting and I get value out of. The whole process we're going to ask users to take of reading our documentation, grokking it, instrumenting their application, sending us data, that's very difficult. If we then add more steps to, okay, you have the data, but you have lots of additional steps before you can even see it, that's going to give customers even more opportunities just to say, you know what, this is too frustrating, I'm going to go do something else. And so that's really a big part of why we want to always be showing these pre-configured dashboards so that customers can get to value very, very quickly. I do think there's an argument to be made for providing a way to disable those dashboards if customers don't want them. Once a customer reaches a given point of maturity, I imagine they'll mostly have customized dashboards and maybe won't want our predefined ones anymore. But that's a future issue we can deal with as a feature later. And I think that's everything in my comment. But please go ahead and read that as well if you like.
For sure. So kind of for the takeaways for this discussion then, and I realize it's taking a lot more time, so we can skip the next point. But ultimately, we're kind of, it seems like we want to try to provide pre-builds unless you opt out, at least to start to provide value and reduce friction. And as far as reading customer built ones, if they are customer built, defining a dashboard repository, we should read from there to avoid edge cases with additional configurations, naming conflicts, things like that in the local repository. Does that sound okay? Well, like I'll follow up on this thread, and then we can get some people's thoughts on that, just to move that forward in the interest of time. So I'll follow up on this issue. Cool. I just wanted to call out, there is a discussion about picking a alternative meeting time for a more APAC friendly time for this call that we can alternate between. So please add your thoughts there. Otherwise, Tim, you have a point for show and tell.
Yes, and if I find my unmute button, it will also work. Good. So what I wanted to show is that two different things. Let me see. So Basti already started to work on an MR for our dev kit, which basically brings in snowplow, so that we are able to collect snowplow data in the TDK itself. So right now the TDK has a setup where you can say, I want to run snowplow micro, which is then basically collecting those events like for that we do on .com so that you can test this locally. And what Basti did is he has taken this and basically rewrote it. So it's not sending it to snowplow micro, but it's already sending it to our own snowplow instance that is running in our dev kit. So what it does is it takes those events, gets them through the the pipeline of Snowplow, which means that there's an enricher in place. And then this goes to Kafka, and the Kafka is basically sending it to ClickHouse, and there it ends up. And what I have tried out now is I took exactly that data structure and already converted our internal dashboards and basically use already the Snowplow events that I'm collecting myself. So which is a very funky experience, because you can see now every time right now, if you reload that page, it is basically counting up and the graphs are building. So this is already using, if we say edit and say code, then it doesn't show because it's in the external files. But if we go to page views and say all the pages, the code, what is happening, it already sends basically to a new schema, which is the Snowplow events and has there the page views count. So what in reality we need to do to, as soon as our collector counts and has Snowplow data, is have a new adapted schema file for Snowplow events, have that in Cube, and on the other hand, have basically all our dashboards reconfigured, which is pretty easy, to be honest. So this takes less than 2 hours to get through all of them and test them. And on the other hand, also the visualization designer keys. So all those things that you can click here are basically using table names. And based on these table names, you are able to field names, you're basically rewriting that query, and that goes already to the Snowplow event. So they are simply named a little bit different. The nicest part that I wanted to call out here is that if we look, that's the problem with white screens. You can't share the full screen because otherwise it will be a horrible experience for everyone watching this. So I need to switch windows all the time. Is what you can see here is that we get way more columns from Snowplow. I linked in the agenda, there is also a listing basically of the enrichers, but I didn't add the link yet. I will do this afterwards. Snowplow has a couple of enrichers already in place. And I was discussing with Basti that we most probably are going to simply activate all of them that Snowplow has, build a model based on that so that we get all the data, and at a later point look that basically users are able to opt in for a specific enrichers or opt out, but that we could build our dashboards on top of those enrichers. To give you a little bit of understanding of that, what does this mean is that you have way more enrichments around the browser itself. So it uses way more modern approaches of figuring out what kind of device it is, the operating system, and it basically can break it down, because there is currently a trend to deprecate in reality the user agent string. So this is the classic way. You have a user agent string, everyone throws whatever they want in there, and then all the analytics packages figure out what to parse out of it. But there is now a new initiative coming since 1 or 2 years, where basically the browser provides already way more options on it. There are a couple of more enrichments going from the referrer parser, so you can basically get an understanding of what kind of medium it is. So you can basically already have in the Snowplow data, is this coming from search, internal, unknown, social, or email? It supports all the classic stuff for marketing campaigns, what is really important for marketing, of course. What else is, I think, you can do IP lookups. So geolocation is also a thing in different varieties. We can do all the IP anonymization automatically. The pseudo-anonymization works also. And there was also one more thing interesting. Yeah, we can have, what was it? Yeah, the IAB enrichment. So you basically, there's a huge database to better understand if those are spiders or bots, and we basically can mark them in our statistics fully automatically by enabling these enrichers, if this is a robot, if this is a browser, and so on. So this works also quite well. So that's currently the target that we will work with the product intelligence team, getting this in MR. Then we will get a huge schema in ClickHouse that we will be able to work against, but this gives us way more options also in the pre-built dashboards. And yeah, but it's really nice to work with that stuff. And do we have a hard stop? I don't. I have one more thing that I wanted to show you. It's not completely done, but it's
I do, but you can keep going. I just wanted to ask about the pseudonymization, but that's cool that it's already an enricher, and then we would just update the SDK just in terms of what these options are, I imagine. So, but I will have to drop. But feel free to show it off because it'll be on the recording and we can review it later. Thank you.
Perfect. Cool. Thanks a lot, Dennis. So that was my Friday project. So there is a thing that I'm currently looking into is how we could use AI at GitLab in the future. Right now, we will have definitely the topic that we are rather focused on having a certain model and we reuse it, but we are also looking now into different options to use all the thousands of offerings that came out of Earth basically over the last couple of months. And one of them is, of course, OpenAI. And what I was playing around with it is what you can see here. It's not completely done, but I have a Postman. I have a server for this. Let me activate that. So what does this do? So this is basically using OpenAI, and OpenAI got the model of the snowplow table from me. And the nice thing is there is tons of snowplow code out there in the world. So what this model is basically capable of doing is it's capable of writing SQL for us, which we then can take and send to Cube and basically create a dashboard just based on natural language processing. So you can basically say, how many page views did we have? And if you send this, then the whole server goes crashing. That's the classic case of a demo, but give me a second. I'm just going to restart this here. Found it. Let's try again. And this works really, really well. And it understands so many things. So the SQL queries work by now, most of the time. There is what some people did is like they try to send an SQL to whatever database they have and say works or didn't work, and basically report back to OpenAI, hey, this query didn't work, please retry, and they will give you a new query. And they basically do it 3 times until it actually works. So how many pages did we have this year so far? And this is basically then creating automatically down here. It is telling me there's, oh, that's also interesting to create an SQL with a missing column. So someone was creating that stuff. So this is basically already trying me because I found an internal Cube API. There is a new feature coming in Cube, which is called SQL Runner, that you can activate, where you can send directly SQL, which is cleaned out, which didn't work so far. They have already a CVE on it. But Cube works in the way that they have an SQL API to support all kinds of business intelligence and so on tools, so that you can basically connect in the way as you would to a database, a Postgres database. But in reality, this is in the background is Cube using our schemas and our pre-aggregations to convert the SQL query, a simpler one, converts it to the Cube queries, and then basically writes out the actual SQL and sends that to ClickHouse. And vice versa. This can convert basically at the end of the day, we should be able through something like this to basically really create a dashboard panel to say that you simply type what you want and say, okay, I want to know all the page views that happened in the plan stage. And it should be able to understand this quite clearly and straightforward. And as this is creating SQL, we can validate it against Cube and convert it into a Cube query. But it's pretty nice. So it's almost complete. I will try to get this into our visualization designer POC, because we are currently trying to collect a couple of those topics to see how we are going to adapt maybe our AI strategy in using rather external services or existing models than to write our own. But this is definitely something which I would love to see in a product, because if you ask me, this is a constant struggle that the data team has to do. Is tons of their work simply, hey, can we have all the events for this and that page? And in Plan, we are looking, for example, also that we are able to feed all the issues from a project, and you can ask it, okay, how many bugs, what types of bugs do we have on the to-do page and stuff like that. So, and I think this would be a pretty nice addition to the product. Questions, Max? Did you have a question? Because you wanted to know how this is done.
Well, yeah, I'm just wary of the fact you don't want to AI us out of a job, but no, this is very cool.
Could we take I know we're doing ML models in GitLab currently in some incubator related work. Could we take some of those models, or do we have the models already for the GitLab database? So could we tie in the snowplow data with GitLab specific project related data already without too much work?
I want to try exactly what I showed you here with the optimized data. We are looking at basically getting the GitLab data to ClickHouse, then connect Cube to it. And with this model, we would be basically able, you basically feed OpenAI just the SQL tables and stuff like that. And then you can refine it on connections and stuff. And the rest is magic. It's just like, and so far it's really about the retrying, but I think that will be the big difference is, do we have actually models that we develop our own, or are we rather using a service that has a huge language model in the background? And that might be a question that we want to discuss quite soon, so that we are capable of keeping up with everyone. Any questions? Any that I should ask this SQL thingy?
Are you sentient?
Go ahead, send me some. But yeah, it's how many events did we have in February? It also actually understands the difference between ClickHouse and Postgres. That was a funky experience. So you can tell it, hey, rather write ClickHouse SQL, and then it converts different types of SQL commands because the date stuff is, for example, different and so on. So, but yeah, that was my fun Friday project, but definitely trying to see that we get some capabilities like this and think about some use cases in a very near future, hopefully, to get this to the product. Cool. Anything else? Any other questions? Good. Great seeing everyone. Happy start to your week, as it is a Forest Monday. Take care, everyone, and see you soon. Bye.
Yeah.